Hey everyone, welcome back for part 2 of our navbar tutorial. So I've shown you kind of how to make a home button according to my previous tutorial, and it shows you how to take text, change the color of it, add a blur, and turn it into 3 separate images. So now that you've followed that, we've had a chance to design and build all of our buttons. And I've got an example here to show you. And I'll go through the steps onto saving 3 buttons for each category, or I mean 3 buttons for each button. That's a lot of buttons. Anyways, we'll end up with 12 buttons in total to submit. So here they are. This is my button navbar tutorial. And the previous tutorial just was the home button. Now we've gone ahead and made a home, portfolio, about us, and a contact. Okay? You may want to use other words, other pages, and you can customize them as you please, as you need. So home, okay, I've organized this in our layers in Pixlr. So each button has how many categories here? How many layers? So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers for each button. And what I've done is I have a home over. So as you hover over home, it highlights. Okay? I'm going to zoom in so we can see what I'm doing. And I hit Control plus to zoom in. So there's my home over. Okay? And then when I click on it, there's a home hit. And when you hit it, it turns kind of golden yellowy color. And I've set that up for everyone. So check this out. So contact has over and hit. And about us has over and hit. And then the last one, portfolio, has over and hit. So that's all of my layers right there. And then I save them out individually, which I'll show shortly, for individual buttons. And here, I've got a little snapshot to show you what that could look like. So here it is. I'm going to expand this window. So I've got an About Us button hit. I've got an About Us button idle. An About Us button over. So here are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 buttons. So that's exactly what we'd want. And you're going to have one for each category and save them out accordingly. Now there's a trick that I can show you where you can save the whole navbar and then crop it as well. But I'll do an in-class tutorial on that. So how do we save this in Pixlr? How do we create what I've just shown you? Well, let's get started. So I'll go back to Pixlr, open up my custom navigation. Yours may look like this if you followed the same exact steps I showed. If you went ahead and made your own with your own colors, that's fantastic. I encourage you to change it, make it your own. I'm going to close this file. And I did show a bit of a snapshot on how to do this with the home button, but now I'm going to elaborate. This is part 2. So what I'm going to do now that I've got everything finished, okay, right now they're all set to be on click. So I can do an example with this. First thing I'm going to do is use my crop tool. And I'm going to save 2 of them, and then the rest you can do. It just repeat after that. So the first one here, I'm going to take my crop tool, and I like to zoom out, go Control minus on your keyboard. That way, when I use the crop tool, I can go over into the gray area outside of my bounding box. Click here and start dragging. Even if you go over, no big deal, we can refine, okay? So if I hit enter, or you can use these little gray bars. Okay, I'm going to try that again. Click with my crop tool. And I can go over here and move them around. So I can edit that. Let me see if I can zoom in too. No, you're fixed. So if you can't quite see, leave it a little bit bigger. Hit enter on your keyboard. then zoom in by going Control+. Go back to the crop tool if you need, and refine. So mine, I really want to make sure that I go up to the edge of that button and hit enter. There's still a little bit there, right? And you can get picky with this. So click and drag until you're happy with it. And I'm still not catching the edge. So I'm going to click, go right up to there, hit enter. I'm happy with that. So now I have my home over, okay? And from here, I'm going to go File, Save. It's very, very important that you don't save it as a PXD. Here, you want to save it as a JPEG. If you're using transparent buttons and the background shows through and there's transparencies, save them as PNGs, okay? But here, I will save it as a JPEG. Make sure that we call it, okay? We have to name it Home BTN, and this is going to be hit, or you could write click. So Home BTN click or hit. Click OK, and save it to your desired folder. Okay, so I've got a button JPEGs, and I've got all of them saved already. If I want to replace it, this one was the home button hit. I would click save and it would replace it. So I have a copy, so I'm good, but you can save yours. Click OK. I'm going to cancel that. And I would just do the same thing now. So instead of home click, so now I got to go through my layers, make sure you name them. And I've got home idle bar. So take away the hit bar that I created. Now this is my home over. So I save it again. Save. This is quite simple. All it is saving each image. So turn on the layer for the idle. Save it as a JPEG. Turn on the layer for the over. Save it as a JPEG. Turn on the layer as the click or the hit, and then save as a JPEG. And you do that for each button. And then the total amount of buttons we have is going to be 12. So I'll do this a few times. I'll go over it so you can follow me. And once you get the hang of it, you'll be able to make all the buttons you want for all sorts of websites. Okay, so this one is going to be home BTN. I use it for short for button. Home button, and this is over. Okay, again, do not save as a PXD, save as a JPEG. Click OK, and then I would save it here to my images. Okay, so that was my home button over. Home button over. There it is. I could replace it. Click save. I'm going to cancel. Cancel. Good. And then I would do the idle state. So now instead of having home over, I check that off, and that's my idle state. So that's what happens when the button's not doing anything. You haven't clicked, you haven't hovered over it yet. File, save. This is going to be home BTN for button, idle, IDLE. Again, do not save as PXD, JPEG. Click OK. Button, and then home button idle. Okay. And you know what? I'll click save. Save. Replace. Yes. I've just replaced that image. Okay. Now what happens here? I'm just left with a home button. But how do I get all the other buttons? I have an entire nav that I designed. Okay. You can do two things. If you saved it as a PXD earlier, you could simply close it and then go File, Open Image, and reopen the PXD file. Otherwise, I like to just do Control Z, undo, undo again, undo, undo, and now I'm back where I started. So this here, I'm going to expand, move it around. I'm going to zoom out again. Control minus to zoom out. I'm going to use my crop tool to crop the next button. So now I'm repeating what I just shown you. Okay, even if you go bigger like this, it might not hurt. Go a bit bigger, hit enter on your keyboard, zoom in, Control plus. I like to work zoomed in on everything I do, just so you can pay attention to all the detail. So portfolio, use the crop tool again, and then you can use the little blue squares or nodes to crop the area that you want to keep for your button. And this can get a little tricky, so take your time. Hit enter. I got a little extra on both ends, so I got to do this again. And don't be afraid to zoom in really close. I'm working on a fairly large monitor, so it helps. But especially on your Chromebooks, it's much better to zoom in. Okay, that's fairly good. I could clean up that one corner, and I will, just because I'm telling you to pay attention to detail. Here I go, right to the edge so I don't see that little white line. And I'll hit enter. There, that's nice. So I've got the portfolio click button now. Okay, and I'm working backwards. I could show you for this one. I'll turn off the click or hit, and I'll turn off the over. So there's my idle button. So if I go File, Save, select JPEG, and now this is not home anymore. This is called Portfolio, Portfolio, Portfolio button idle. Click OK. Portfolio button idle, there it is. If I click Save, I will replace it. Done. Okay. Then I click on my portfolio overlayer, which is right here. Do the same exact thing. File, Save, Portfolio button idle. No, it's not idle anymore. It's over because I've hovered over that button and it changed. The text starts to glow. Not a PXD. I want JPEG. Click OK. Portfolio button over. I'm going to double check. Portfolio button over. Save. I'm going to replace it just to show you how that works. And I got one last one to do, which is the hit. And I turn the whole thing gold, so then it really ensures that the person knows that they just clicked on it. It's important that you do things like that, visual cues, that your end user knows what they're doing. So File, Save. Make sure to save it as a JPEG. If you save it as a PXD, you may lose all of the other work you've done, so be very careful. Portfolio button hit. And here you can write click or hit, but I use hit as a lingo. So click OK. Whatever you use, just repeat the same thing. Portfolio button hit. Portfolio button hit. Save. Yes. And that is how you do it. I would do the same things for all 4 buttons. I've shown you how to do half the navigation. The rest is up to you to complete. And so now that I've done that, I can undo, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z again. And if I zoom out, Control minus, 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 do that. And I've got my nav. If I really want to make sure that I save this, okay, all my layers are still here, it's smart to always double check that you saved a PXD. So now I would save my original PXD, click OK. I'm going to go back a directory, and this is my navbar tutorial file. So if I click save and I replace that, I've saved a PXD of the entire nav. So if I want to come back and edit that in Pixlr with all my layers still there, that's great. But now I've got all of my button JPEGs and my original PXD file. So thanks for hanging in there. Thanks for working hard. Your navigations are looking fantastic. And keep up the hard work. We'll catch up in class. Take care.